Recording.
All right.
I thought the first thing we would do tonight is let people come in. We'll have our public comment first. And if you can mute your microphone, that'll really help. So we'll let, so we've got an echo here. Is everybody muted? Great. We'll let our residents and community members introduce yourself. And if you'd like to make a comment tonight, this is your opportunity before we have a discussion.
If you want to go ahead and you can either visually raise your hand and I will call on you, or you can use the little reactions button there at the bottom and raise your hand as well. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi there.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, I just wanted to kind of give my opinion as far as the use of the berm and what type of traffic should be on it. And my feeling is for the safety of the people that are on it, the pedestrians, that bicycles should still use the road like they have in the past. There is a good shoulder on the side of the road, and we've been using, actually I'm a bicyclist too, and I use that still to this day. And I don't travel on the berm. I see a lot of bicycles on the berm, and it just tends to appear to be unsafe for the pedestrians as far as bicycle traffic on the berm. Also, as far as the handicap devices, I'm all for scooters and the handicap scooters and the wheelchairs, as long as they're going, at the same rate as the pedestrians. I have seen in the past a scooter on there scooting along pretty good, and I just think for the safety of the pedestrians, the speed of the scooter should be the same as the pedestrians. And they can, of course, go around them if they want to get around them, but continue at a slower pace. As far as any golf carts, obviously those should still be on the road. And that pretty much, and as far as kids on bicycles, I know that was kind of a concern too. My thought on that is they should probably not be riding their bikes on the berms either, because I don't really think that's a place to learn how to ride a bicycle. We've got places, neighborhoods. I don't know what the options are to use the little kind of park area across from the berm down by the Blaine Library, where it's going to be down there, that little park area, if that's available for people to ride bicycles in, or that kind of stuff to teach kids how to ride bikes. That would be an opportunity place to teach a kid. But I'm just kind of looking at, that's my opinion of, no bicycles on the berm and no electric carts except for the handicap type. And that's what I've got.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Karen Bell.
I'm having trouble unmuting.
You got it.
Thanks for letting me speak. For example, I have an example with the kids on the bikes. If myself or my husband are walking with our grandson while he's riding a bike, I'm not having him on the road while I'm on the berm. So if they're accompanied by a pedestrian, adults and that kind of thing, I don't see a problem with the kids doing that. If there's a whole slew of them just tearing down the road, the berm, that's a whole different story. But I had a situation the other day, and I think this is something we're going to have to deal with ASAP, because there was a carload of about 4 adult bikes that were unloaded. And they said, oh, look at this great road for us to ride on. And guess what? It was the berm that they were going to be going on. So we need to get signs up there ASAP, because we do not need 20-something adults riding their bicycles up there on the berm. And right now, we really don't have much in the way of signage to prevent that from happening. They were unloading their bikes and ready to go right up on the berm. That's it for me.
Thanks, Karen. Anybody else have any comments? It says Brian, but I think that that's not Brian. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Here we go. Can you hear me? Hi. Okay, so I am Brian's wife, Kay. So hi. So anyway, first of all, it's so fun to be active and everything. And the oh my gosh, the judging was so fun last weekend. I just have to say that. But so anyway, so one of my main concerns is I do feel that it should be for pedestrians only. However, I do agree with what you know, Brian and is it Karen said that I mean, and of course for handicap, you know, to have not an actual golf cart, which I've seen go zipping along there, but just an you know, electrical what do you call that? Just a handicap cart or whatever. But and we have a little granddaughter too who would love to ride there. My question is and concern is, if a lot of bikes, and certainly not a bunch of adults ever, even if it's an individual adult, in my opinion, but if you say like no bikes or whatever, how would that signage look? Because then people say, oh, there's kids on bikes. So, you know, how would we, that's something that you guys would need to discuss amongst yourselves or whatever for the actual rules or whatever. But also, depending on how many bikes or scooters or whatever are on there, like it starts tearing up the rock. I know the rock is, you know, pushed down pretty far, but is that something that I don't know exactly who did it, but the county, are they going to roll back over it again every now and then? Or so those are kind of my main thoughts and concerns on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other comments? Can't see anybody's hands going up.
I don't know how to do this.
Carol, did you want to say something?
Oh, yeah, are you only addressing comments with regard to the bicycles?
Nope. I think just any comment you want to make in regards to the berm right now, it's open for public comment.
Oh, okay. So I did send email with a couple of, with 4 questions.
I do have that. Do you want to go ahead and do it in your own words?
Okay. So to tie into what Brian's wife just said, after the 1-year maintenance period ends, who will maintain the berm plantings? And she made a good point about the actual gravel pathway as well. What does the maintenance consist of? Does it include weeding, watering, replacing destroyed and dead plants? And who's going to pay for it? How is it going to be paid for?
Roland, I think
Yep.
Roland with us.
Is Roland on the call? I didn't see
Roland
him.
is on the call and he just
I am.
unmuted.
Okay.
So the the permit requires us for the next 3 to 10 years to have the plants established to a certain percentage. Once that percentage is achieved through in between inspections. So, and I don't know what that is offhand. But once that's achieved, then Planning and Development Services will sign off on the plantings. And right now we have spent just under $1 million on plants and maintaining the plants. And that's why the orange fence went up in the first place. We never had any intention on putting orange fences up there, but because the plantings were damaged so badly, the first weekend that we got done planting, we lost nearly $20,000 in plants because people just trashed right over it.
Oh, I was down there watching you do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the requirement with regard to the plantings. And as soon as they get established, and some areas are doing very well and some areas aren't doing so well, we've asked the contractor to increase the watering, and they've done that. And with regard to the actual path, That is not on a specific maintenance schedule. So if it gets to a certain level of inability for pedestrians to move down the path, then we'll come out and address it. So there's not a specific timeline. And that is really for pedestrian use. If it's too rocky or too whatever for bicycles to go on it, even if you allow bikes to go on it, we're not going to come in and maintain that, just like any other sidewalk that we have. So that's the answer for that.
Okay, so the Department of Public Works is going to continue to maintain this for up to 10 years?
With regard to the plantings, yes, the walkway is the pedestrian facility, and that will be maintained for storms and all of that.
Okay.
Public Works will not be maintaining any recreational things like benches, outhouses, whatever. None of that will be maintained by Public Works.
Will that be like Parks and Recreation?
No, that's up to the community, either the Park and Recreation District to do, the chamber or what have you, but it's not part of Public Works.
Okay. Thank you. The second question I had was, is there a plan to have the trash picked up? I spent a couple weeks going up and down, picking up from the roadway to the pathway and on the pathway, and then from the pathway as much as I could reach, including over the fencing, if I could reach over the fencing on the berm. And of course, we had our 4th of July volunteer crew that comes through, but there's just so much trash building up now in the plants. So does anyone know if there's any plan to have, because the guys that are out there doing the weeding are not picking up trash. They're weeding, but they're not picking up trash.
Besides our regular Adopt a Block program, I don't know of any trash pickup groups, but they are quite active in the community and picking up the trash along Birch Bay Drive.
We have the watershed watchers that go out and pick up trash on a regular basis. As far as the trash cans, and I think that's been a conversation, the trash cans will be on by the enhanced shoulder. They're not supposed to be in the enhanced shoulder. We'll talk about that probably a little bit later. I have contacted SSC and talked to the manager of all of the garbage truck drivers. And he is very aware that we want those placed off of the enhanced shoulder. But unfortunately, he said there's 5, 6, 7 drivers and he never knows which ones are out here and they all have to get the message. And they did really well for about 3 weeks or a month. And now they're just setting the cans down quickly. And I mean, it takes them a little more time to place them correctly. So I guess we'll be making a phone call to SSC every so often, reminding them how important it is to keep those trash cans off of the enhanced shoulder. As far as garbage cans on the pathway or right next to the pathway, unless Roland, you've got another idea, I don't see that happening because the pickers on the trucks can only go 6 feet and they're not SSC, unless, I don't even know whether it's possible, but unless the county has a bigger bill to pay, they're not getting out of their trucks and going and hauling garbage cans. You got any comments on that, Roland?
Other than, it's one of the issues about having an urban growth area in a rural county, where, we do not tax Birch Bay for urban services. Whatcom County Public Works and the Parks Department is set up for a rural county, not an urban. You go through the vast majority of sidewalks throughout the different cities. Other than downtown, you're not going to see trash cans through residential areas. You can walk through all the residential areas throughout Bellingham and there are not any trash cans. And the berm is a sidewalk. It's not a state park or county park. There is a county park there, but that is limited to that park property. And so that's the difficulty in a lot of the things that people would like to see out there. They'd like to see more benches. They'd like to see showers. They'd like to see trash cans. They'd like to see porta potties. And I certainly can appreciate that, having lived in Birch Bay. However, for Public Works, it is a sidewalk and not a park facility.
Okay, the one thing that became very noticeable, especially over the July 4th holiday, was access to the public beach. How it was severely restricted, so people just took it into their own hands to tear the fencing down, and the DPW has been very good about coming back out and putting it back up again, but at that point, the plants have already been stomped on, and so the question is there any thought to how we can get more beach access, especially to the public beaches?
Which
Where
one
the
are you
public,
referring to?
where the public parking is, get more access there so people stop.
Where the public parking is on the right of way. The vast majority of the parking throughout Birch Bay is on private beaches. So other than the park property, the rest of the tidelands are owned by private citizens. Gold Star owns in front of Gold Star. Mr. Vogt owns in front of his place. Mariners Cove owns in front of their, Jacob's Landing owns that beach in front of theirs. And more people are starting to put up, the condominium associations are starting to put up no trespassing signs.
Yeah.
Because folks have worn out their welcome in certain cases. That's why we put this the fence clear across that. And we specifically did not add access to other people's property. The access is along the road, not from the parking lot over down onto the beach, because the vast majority of that is actually private property.
Okay, but up at Harborview, and where Harborview comes down onto Birch Bay Drive, and
Yes.
for some period of time until I guess now you're saying Mariners Cove, that's all, there is some public beach there, correct?
No,
From
Mariners Cove owns in front of that. Mr. Vogt and several of his cousins own north of Mariners Cove and north of Harborview, all the way through there, and you get up to Doralee's place. Those are all privately owned, except for Cottonwoods South and North. Those I believe are both owned by the Parks Department.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the vast majority of that is accessible by the grace of people who allow people to enjoy their beach.
Right. Now, what about down by the restaurants and the Chamber of Commerce? That's all private property as well?
Yes, that's owned by Gold Star. Sandcastle, Gold Star owns all of that from, and then let's see, in front of the CJ's, Stephanie's, I still call it Stephanie's, is it Mr. Lee or Mr. Chin? I don't remember which, but
Mr. Chen,
Mr. Chin owns all of that.
So if I understand you correctly, the only two places are the two parking lots, one Cottonwood South and one Cottonwood North, are the only public access beaches along Birch Bay Drive.
No, and the park itself, which is just north of the chamber office.
Right, Golden Tides. Okay, so the little park area. So
and also the library property. There's 170 feet that will be open to the public on the library property. That's one of the most important things in regards to sort of getting some of the property down there in the resort commercial, because that opens up for public. Same thing as the beach park, and all the road ends are public.
Almost all the road ends.
Oh, excuse me.
Oh, you mean like the lanes that go onto Birch Bay Drive?
No, down south of
Oh,
Jackson.
yeah, Fir Tree Lanes, no.
No, not the lanes. They own actually all of that.
So like Jackson and everything further south of there or something? Yeah, okay, but
Yeah.
those are already marked. It's more that people see parking and there's nothing at times that's designated that this is private beach and, you know.
And we really were trying not to get there. That's not something that we were wanting to highlight, honestly. So
Right.
I've spent quite a bit of time in other areas along the Salish Sea, and where now Birch Bay does have a tremendous amount of tourism, but in Pacific Beach, once the plants get well established, people will be able to walk in between those plants really easy. You can even drag a canoe over it. It's not going to be that big a deal. It's going to be very beautiful and ecologically sound. It's just in this first year or two when the plants are trying to get their roots established is really the difficult one. And of course, the fact that we're in a drought and we haven't had any measurable precipitation for a couple of months now. So, what you see today is not, we don't want to have that orange fence up, and what will be well established. You can see it in certain spots. You can see how well some of the beach grass, the dune grass and stuff, and the beach strawberry are coming in. You'll see that all the way up and down. Next spring, you'll see a completely different view.
Okay. And then the last thing that I've heard several people complain about was that the parking for oversized vehicles continues to be an issue for them. And the previous response to that was, well, go park down at the state park, but you can't ask a family with 4 kids and all the stuff to walk from the state park back up to, to the events in front of the Chamber of Commerce. So I understand that eventually the park was supposed to be the location where there would be oversized vehicle parking. But is there any way to accommodate them for this season, since it's now, we're having the hottest summer on record around here?
Well, if you're talking about during events, we have plenty of parking behind the visitor center for
Right,
any
no,
size.
on the weekends. On the weekends, because there's nothing there on the weekends for them. During the week, it isn't so bad because the beach isn't so busy, but on the weekends, it's busier.
So other than Dora Lee, who's probably the only one that attended, Whatcom County Parks and Public Works, as well as the Chamber, sponsored dozens of public meetings. And this was all part of that conversation. Public Works asked the community, do you want to lose some parking spaces to have oversize? And a resounding community said, absolutely not. We want as many parking spaces as possible. And if people have oversized rigs, they can park down at the state park. That's not a decision from Whatcom County Public Works. That was from the several public meetings that we had out there. Now, granted, those were going on 15 years ago now. I can't believe 2006 is 15 years ago. And I was looking at some pictures, and I'm standing there with Bill Grant, and he had gray hair and I had dark hair back then. So to give you an idea, there's been quite a bit of time, and that's one of the unfortunate things with regard to this project is it has stopped and started so many times that you all are new to a project that some of us have been working on for a few decades. And one of the reasons why I'm still on the line for this project, even though most of it's been handed over to the engineers, is because I have that history. And unfortunately, I'm right there with you, Carol. I understand, but that question was asked of the community, and it was a resounding no, don't eliminate any parking spaces for any reason. And if they're oversized, they need to go to the park or to park property. Now, at the time, there was also a different owner of where the CJ Beach House is, and there was plans. He had plans to do quite a bit of work in there, and he was going to put in RV parking and oversized parking. So that is one of the unfortunate things about it, that those plans fell through.
So what is preventing us from using the park? In the no construction for the improved park has begun. So what would prevent from using the park as a location for parking? Especially the oversized vehicles.
Yeah, technically the construction has begun. The contracts are being letted out, and there's archaeological work being done right now with regard to removing the fencing and the pavement and that sort of thing. And so that's the Parks Department does not have a specific schedule of when that work will be done. And so until that is approved through the different offices for cultural resources, the Parks Department can't let people just park in there. And that's why it was off limits this year.
So let me ask another question that isn't on here, but if we're able to provide event parking, is there a reason we can't provide it, for oversized vehicles, say, oversized vehicles, why can't they use that same location?
So I can speak to that one. We have the approval to use the parking area behind us. That's part of or behind CJ's as well.
Right.
For our events, we have the approval from C-Links, the manager of the C-Links property, to use those for our events because we have somebody back there supervising the parking area. We couldn't take on supervising that area any given weekend during the summertime.
Okay.
Private property.
It's private property. So
Okay.
Carol, did you get most of those questions answered then?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Next up, Karen Bell, I see your hand up. Jeff Sterling was up next, and then I'll call on you, okay? Go ahead, Jeff.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My main concern is with the pedestrian bicycle path. And I guess I'll start from the beginning. This, since 15 years ago, as the previous speaker mentioned, has been advertised as being a pedestrian / bicycle path. And as a resident of Birch Bay for that entire length of time, I've supported this Berm project all along. And now it kind of disappoints me that I'm being told that it cannot be used for bicycles, or at least it may not be used for bicycles. It wouldn't be so bad if the bike path was still usable, but now that the berm is built, the beach litter cans are all placed directly in the bike path. And I understand this has been addressed. I heard that being addressed earlier, and I hope that can be resolved, but that's still kind of disappointing because for the last 15 years, I've been looking forward to a bicycle path that would be separated from the roadway and would be much safer for my daily travels. And I live here 365 days a year. I ride my bicycle up and down that path, or up and down Birch Bay Drive. That's basically my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Pat, did you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that no one should assume that any decisions have been made about the use of bicycles. That this task force is going to make a recommendation at the conclusion of its existence to the chamber. It's going to make a recommendation to the county council, and that's how it's going to go. I think the use by bicycles is very much still something that probably is supported by the task force, but subject to reasonable regulation. Yeah, for example, we received a recommendation from the, I forget, Burley, you tell us what the organization is, the Whatcom Bicycle Pedestrian.
Mhm. Yes.
And I read those and I thought they were very good. I made one suggestion with respect to those, but this task force has to sort of come to a consensus at the end and then make its recommendation. And it's still very much up in the air what the situation with bicycles is going to be.
Thank you, Pat.
If I could follow up on Pat's comments, those, and I see Dave Bruin is here now, and did I also see that Deputy Jones is here as well?
No.
Oh, he didn't check in. We are just collecting information now from the community. There has been no decision made in regards to just a multi-use or just a simple pedestrian pathway. We are just acquiring information. And this possibly might be a good time for me to read to you the suggestions from the Whatcom County Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee. We have contacted them and they came out and did a bit of a field trip out here. And they have given us their recommendations. They gave us 5 recommendations. After some conversation, the following guidelines were developed for consideration. Their acronym is BPAC recommends that both pedestrians and cyclists be permitted to use the trail. 2, equestrians and motorized vehicles should be limited to unique circumstances as defined by the community. Example, motorized wheelchairs. 3, the BPAC recommends that signage be posted to direct all users to stay on the right side of the trail in order to make way for oncoming users and to allow other users to pass from behind without conflict. BPAC recommends that signage be posted to direct cyclists must always give way to pedestrians. Number 5, BPAC recommends that signage be posted to direct cyclists must use a voice or bell when passing pedestrians from behind. These suggestions are based upon consideration of public comments received, the personal experiences of committee members when using similar public trails in other locations, and how other Whatcom County trails of similar size and users density are managed. The BPAC applauds the efforts of the Birch Bay community to build this multi-use trail, and we appreciate the opportunity to provide comments. If after a trial period, there is unusually high conflict between groups, we would be happy to discuss additional recommendations which could alleviate that conflict. So that is their recommendation. And so that will be something that we will be looking at seriously. They study all the interurban trails in Bellingham. They see and hear about all the conflicts and all of the issues that come with the multi-use. One of the comments at the first meeting that we attended that I remembered is that bicyclists do not want to be on a heavy pedestrian walkway. So they use the word they self-regulate. So on any given weekend that we would have an event and the pedestrian pathway the pedestrians would be, heavy on the pathway, your bicyclists are most likely not going to want to ride in that kind of conflict. If they were on there, they would probably walk their bike. These are some of the information we're going to be taking in. Besides your information, we're going to be doing this with the bike ped, and we will have, I think the next meeting that we get together will just be the task force members to begin to put together some of the information we're hearing and begin to try and possibly have a working sheet that we can share with you, a draft sheet, so shall we say, that we can share with you at our next meeting. I see somebody's hand up. Was it Jeff?
Karen had her hand up. Karen, did
Okay.
you want to do your comment now?
I did. It had to do, as Carol had mentioned about oversized vehicles parking down at the state park. I think that's completely unreasonable for people to be expected to do that. If you can get permission from Chen Holdings to allow parking in behind CJ's, why are we not able to get it from them until they decide at whatever point, if they decide to do something more and not allow it? Why could we not have that property, ask Chen Holdings to have it, that property available for oversized parking or additional parking if there isn't enough on the road? And now that Whatcom Parks and Rec is not allowing us to use the park, what is supposed to be our beach park, you know, I mean, we had our rollback and sand sculpture weekend and we couldn't, all the vendors dropped out because there was nowhere to put them. So the amount of money that Birch Bay community lost from not being able to access that park area. And we didn't have anything set up behind CJ. So, you know, I think there's a lot of this kind of planning that has been overlooked, or I'm just wondering why not more has been spoken to Chen Holdings to utilize the back of that golf course area until further plans are decided for what happens with it. Or has anybody pursued that?
Do you want to take that, Danielle, or do you want me to speak to it?
Well, I can. Our agreement with Mick from C-Links is that we can use it during our events.
Excuse me, what C-Links got to do with it? C-Links doesn't own any of that property in and around the golf
He's
course.
the one who manages the property back there.
For Chen, for
For
Mr.
Chen.
Chen.
Oh, he's not from C-Links though.
Mick?
I think Danielle is just calling it C-Link's property because everybody knows the area we're talking
Yeah,
about.
but it's not C-Link's property. C-Link's property is strictly the fenced-in gated community.
Yes, yes, it's Mr. Chen's holdings, and
Yes.
it's Karen, it's very complicated. Mr. Chen is extremely difficult. We've never
I
been
know.
able to communicate with
I
him.
know.
We have to
I'm
go
on the board
through,
of C-Link, so I'm well versed with Mr. Chen. Yeah.
and it's complicated. It's private property. We have no rights to use it. We have to maintain it then. We have no money. The chamber has no money to mow and maintain it. It's a fire hazard back there, so you have to mow. You can't let cars go back there. When cars have gone back there to park, they park every which way. There's no organization, there's no lines, there's no anything. It's complicated. It's private property. And we've done the best we can to even get it for our events. It's been challenging, trust
And
me.
even to just mow it for our events that we do use it, it costs a small fortune to just
Yeah.
have it mowed just for that small amount of time.
And even though we want to have these kinds of things, people have property rights. It's private property. I wanted to let you know that the park property, in planning the park, eventually, I don't know when, there will be 124 parking places in the park. You will go in and the parking places are towards the back. And when this gets done, I have no idea. There's also 6 family restrooms that are to go on the park, and that's phase 1. So there will be more parking for Birch Bay in the future. I do want to go to Danielle. Do you have the pictures that I sent you today in regards to the oversized parking? We might as well deal with that because that's been something that the community.
Yeah, just one sec here. I mean, if we can get money to get a mower, I will go out there and mow that darn grass so we can have parking. And even once the park is open for parking, that's not oversized parking. I think that's all car and van parking. It's not oversized parking. So you're stuck with the same situation, people coming in with trailers and motorhomes, or more so motorhomes, and not being able to access the activities going on in the middle of Birch Bay.
Yeah, better yet, Karen, if you can get a hold of Mr. Chen and get his permission,
Well, I've already
We'd like
spent a
that.
year and a half trying to do that. Yeah.
that'd work for us.
Dave had his hand up before I
Okay.
shared these, if
Sure.
you wanted to make a
Oh,
comment.
yeah, no, sorry. I was just going back to just a bit of a question, I guess, in regards to, I've heard a couple people mention the bike lane along Birch Bay Drive, but as far as I'm aware, it's just a shoulder. There is no designated bike lane, which, just in terms of riding along there, I mean, I know what it's like because we've heard of some of those complaints about the garbage cans, but it's not necessarily, they're not blocking a bike lane, they're blocking the shoulder of the road, as far as I'm aware.
Yes.
There is no bike lane that leads through Birch Bay to the berm, which is just kind of one of the other discussions, is that if you were going to be biking on the berm, you would have, if you would either start on the berm someplace, or you would have to bike there on the shoulder of the road.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that, just because, just when we start using the term bike lane, it makes it a little confusing, because it is just the shoulder of the road, like any other shoulder. It's nicer than most shoulders, because it's a little wider, luckily, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of clarify that.
Great, thank you. Was there anybody else that had their hand up before we go and take a look at the enhanced shoulder?
Yes.
Jeff,
Okay.
go ahead.
I wanted to address the bike lane issue. Since it was just mentioned, there is at least one stretch of Birch Bay Drive along Terrell Creek where there is a actual lane that is marked with a bicycle and rider symbol and designated as a bike lane and separated from a pedestrian lane. So it's not true that there are no bike lanes in Birch Bay. Granted, most of the lanes that are used for bicycles are not marked as such, but again, for 15 years, we've been promised a bicycle pedestrian pathway on a berm that is separated from the road. And now that we have one, there is discussion going on about not allowing bicycles on there because of the fact that there is a bike lane in Birch Bay. Now, some people are saying there's no bike lane. Other people are saying that we shouldn't allow bicyclists on the berm because there is a bike lane. I actually would not even mind so much if the litter cans were not placed in this non-bike lane that bicyclists must use, and if there are litter cans in the bike lane, the bicyclists have to go into the traffic lane, which is officially a traffic lane, and they risk injury or death from collision with automobiles. I understand there's not that much traffic, except in the summertime when the berm is going to be full of pedestrians. And there will be lots of traffic on Birch Bay Drive, as well as bicyclists to have to dodge around these litter cans that are sitting on the enhanced shoulder. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you, Jeff. Can I refer that to Roland? I have also heard, Roland, that it's confusing when you get down to the fir tree lanes and you see what is supposedly a bike lane. When Public Works redoes the road and stripes the road and everything, will that still be that way or not?
No, it won't be. It will be as established under the federal code with regard to bike lanes. So it has been treated by the community as a bike lane, but it is not legally a bike lane. It is an improved shoulder. And if you recall, some 25 years ago, the shoulder was about 18 inches wide. And the first thing that Public Works did in response to the comprehensive plan that Birch Bay put together in 2004 was to increase the surface area as to the greatest extent that we were able to do so. And that's why you have one of the wider shoulders, an improved shoulder in Whatcom County. Other than arterials and collectors, you don't see shoulders that wide for roads. All the other 25 and 35 mile an hour roads typically have about 18 inches of pavement, and the rest is gravel. But we paved out as wide as we could without getting in trouble with regard to stormwater requirements. And as far as the bike symbol that was painted down there, I'm not sure who did it, but it's not an official symbol by Whatcom County Public Works. If it's a bike lane, then only bikes can travel in that. You can't park in it, you can't walk in it, you have to cross it just like a crosswalk. But that's not what you have there. You have right now, it is an improved shoulder. So it's the best place to ride a bike, but you're absolutely right, Mr. Sterling. The pedestrians and most of the bicycles, the recreation bicycles, really were established for the berm. We're having this conversation because there was enough people that wanted to have the conversation with regard to bikes on the berm itself. So right now, bikes are allowed, legal. They can be on there. Motorized vehicles are not, and that's under the state law. So golf carts are not allowed up there. Electric bicycles are allowed because they're allowed under state law. Wheelchairs, motorized wheelchairs are allowed because they're allowed in state law. Basically, if you go downtown Bellingham, anything that's allowed on the sidewalks of Bellingham, which are quite a bit, is allowed right now on the sidewalk of Birch Bay Drive.
Thank you. Could we go to Pat Anderson right now? Pat, would you educate us on what a road bike is, an adult road bike?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. That is one of the suggestions I made regarding the committees was that adults riding road bikes would not be allowed on the berm. They would be required to ride on the paved roadway. A road bike is something that is well known and understood by the cycling community. It's in fact, I think I don't know if you share that definition. That something that says a road bike is a bike that allows you to go as fast and far as your legs will take you. And that would cause a great deal of conflict with pedestrians on the berm. And that was one of my suggestions to add to the bike pedestrian committee's recommendation, which overall I thought was just absolutely excellent.
You're we're not getting a good vocal sound from you, but a person who's riding a road bike, they would not like the gravel either, would they? Their road bike would not perform well on the gravel. Is that right?
I think I just lost my Zoom here. Let me see if I can get back.
We can hear you. You just sound a little bit robotic.
Okay. What I'm seeing on my screen says sick of the 40-minute time limit. Learn about advanced collaboration features of Zoom Pro. I'm using the web version.
Well, we can understand you. It's just gravelly.
All right. Well, then maybe that's just my voice.
No, it's not. A person riding a road bike, an adult road bike, they wouldn't really want to go on to the berm, would they, or the promenade, because their tires are so small that gravel would not be good riding for them, right?
Well, that's what I assume that they would prefer to ride on the paved roadway anyway. On the other hand, if you go on any given time, you're going to find somebody zooming along on a road bike at 20 miles an hour. And I think we just need to come to a conclusion that says that's really not okay, and the regulation should not allow that.
Okay, so we could deal with that in the signage then, probably.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
Oh,
Jen?
Jamie, do you have something?
Okay.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is there a possibility that you could keep all the bikes but set a speed limit? I've seen that on a lot of public trails where they have bike speed limits.
That's a possibility that I've heard of. I think enforcement is a hard issue with that, from what I understand from Derek, but that is another option too. Do you want me to share the pictures, Dorley?
Yeah, why don't, we've been talking a lot about the enhanced shoulder particularly in the parking areas. So let's take a look at a few pictures here. This picture I took out in front of, this is North Cottonwood and right in front of my cottage. And I looked out the window and saw this truck and could hardly believe my eyes, whether they just didn't realize they got out of the truck and went to the beach, that they were in the roadway. But this is not all that, this is extraordinary, but it's not all that, you know, it happens down here. And so I went out to take a picture of what a car had to do to go around it. And this is the picture. I am just astonished. He was there for about 3 hours and I was concerned. I was thinking of calling 911, but now with the new laws and all, I don't think the patrolmen are dealing with traffic issues like this. Next picture, Danielle. Here comes the bicyclist, and notice he's not just in the roadway, the 10-foot roadway. He is almost at the yellow line. And this is what it looked like when you were approaching it. And this was you can see that there was a hitch on the back of it too, which could have done some major damage to a car or a bicyclist. If you were walking along there, imagine what you would have had to do to get around that. This is a picture that Sonia Max from the Bike Ped Committee took when she was out for a ride. She had comments on this regarding, and we also have another comment letter that was written to us from Bellingham that observed this and was very, very frightened of it. But anyway, Sonia took this picture and she said for a family riding their bicycle, or even she considers herself, you know, a really good bike rider that's had a lot of experience. She said, this is like gambling for your life, especially like, see the red truck there. You don't know where there's somebody's backing out by the red, you know, on the other side of the red truck. So for both drivers and bicyclists, this is a very interesting situation. And she suggested that we have some signage where down at Mariners Cove, there's a much more room. The cars are towards the beach further, but along the resort area of CJ's and all, we possibly may be looking at maybe putting up some signage to warn the drivers to be extremely careful when they're backing out, as well as warning bicyclists as they're coming up on this part that they need to be extremely careful. She feels like this is an accident waiting to happen. And she suggested that when the road is redone, that the road is widened, but Roland will have everything to say about that, right, Roland?
The road is as wide as it's allowed right now. And
Okay.
If we go back to all the way back into the 1980s, 1990s, early 2000s, we see all kinds of pictures that we used for the county engineer and the county council to get this project built in the first place. So that's why the pedestrian facility was built, is for this very reason. The previous truck was illegal. I mean, it's parked in the road.
Yes.
And so
I know.
there's no question about that. This red truck is perfectly legal. it is out of the travel lane, and bicycles are allowed to go down the road, and as they are all over the place. So there's only so much legislation and things that you can do, but the roadway width is as wide as we're allowed to make it.
Okay, next picture. Here's another picture. You know, everybody's carrying everything on the back of their vehicles. So here we have, hopefully they had an enjoyable bike ride at Birch Bay. Are there any more? Oh, we go ahead. Yeah, this we have every so often. I don't know what was going on here, but this is another picture from Sonia. This is going to be, if you're going on this place, you'd be coming towards North Cottonwood from the resort area. This is sort of in your way. But these are the kinds of things that your bicyclists are going to be dealing with, and it probably won't change through the years. So we bring this information into the task force, and we'll be looking at the, you know, as much as we can, the safety issues here.
And that's all of them.
Thank you.
Ooh.
I have another comment from a letter from Bellingham, and I love it that Bellingham people have once again found Birch Bay. And she says for the first time in 30 years, we've been spending time in Birch Bay. I was about 1 inch short of being hit by a car that was parked but backing out into the drive while I was on my bicycle. So she's talking about this area that we just looked at. Previously, drivers parked on the drive and had enough room to partially back out to view traffic. That wasn't the truth right there, but it is at Mariners Cove. This creates a new danger to bicyclists that needs to be addressed. I have just been told that the shoulder on the drive is not a bicycle lane. Did she come in and talk to you at the chamber, Danielle?
Probably. That's almost a daily conversation about the bike lane.
Yeah. Well, regardless of whether it is or isn't, there's a lifetime of many bicyclists using this shoulder area to ride bikes along the drive. Mixed signals are being sent to bicyclists as further south on the drive by Bay Rim Condo, there are 2 clearly marked shoulder lanes, of which a bicycle is painted on the road. And that's the one Roland was just talking about. Because bicyclists will continue to bicycle on the road, I would recommend posted signage to alert drivers to be extremely cautious about backing up. There will be some serious or fatal injuries in the future with the current situation. Okay. Any other comments?
Mary Lou, go ahead. You'll need to unmute first. Nope. Here. You should have popped something up for you.
Mute. Okay, can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, after watching everything that's been going on, I think most of the people, you know, 80% they get along great with the bicycles and the walkers. Everything's going good. I mean, once in a while, and something will happen that's probably not good, but some sign's probably not going to make a difference. I mean, you know, you always got someone that's going to do something maybe that they shouldn't do, but most of the time, I think everyone's getting along. I mean, you want your little kids riding with your parents. You're not going to put them out on the street. And the walkers, I mean, I think it's been going pretty well, actually.
So do we have any other comments of people that have been walking and riding their bikes on the berm? Any more field trip stories?
Jeff?
Yeah, I would just like to say that when I've been riding my bike on Berm for the most part, it's been fine. The pedestrians and the bicyclists have not conflicted at all. The only exception to that was this last weekend with the rollback weekend and all the classic cars on the road and all that, but that's an exception. So I understand that. But most of the time, there's been no problem riding a bike on the berm and with the pedestrians. That's my take on it.
Any other personal experiences?
Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah, we both have road bikes and we have self-regulated to the road because as it was pointed out earlier, it is not comfortable to ride your road bike on that trail. So it was about one time was plenty and we were back on the road and we just try to be really careful in the parking areas because we know people are pulling out.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
As I said last time, I have a 3-wheeler granny bike, and I've been taking little field trips down there in the evenings. And my little granny bike makes it, because you're riding on the gravel, I've got 3 fenders and they rattle a little bit. So people know I'm coming. And I also bought myself a bell. And I also say passing on the left. And when I ring my bell, the bell seems to work the best. When I ring the bell, people sort of freeze because, you know, I think this is going to be an educational proposition for everyone, for bicyclists, for walkers and all, because the walkers, I think they just don't know where I am. And then they kind of freeze and I'll say passing on the left. And then it feels like they don't know where to go. And so I'm going very sort of slowly behind them. And most of them are seniors like myself. And I don't know whether they didn't learn left or right, or they just can't think fast enough. They don't move over really quickly. And I can see some problems if teenagers come flying down, you know, there's the conflicts there. But I think if we learn to walk to the right and not in a bunch, 2 people walking together, fine, but stay to the right. And then you don't have to freeze and get all excited about going left or right. Many of the pedestrians need to learn how to walk on the berm as well. They're walking down the middle of it. They're walking on the left side of it. So it's going to take some education. And I guess that's our job as a community to, when you're on the berm, try and educate people as to where they need to be. And I've stopped and talked to people, you know, when I'm on there and saying, you know, just having a friendly chat after I've passed them and all. So anyway, that's my field trip experience. So you guys get out there if you want to join in on our next meeting, get out there and have a field trip experience, either walking or riding your bike. Any other comments?
Wendy?
Yeah, I think the thing that jumped out at me with the session is just the realization of how much of the actual beach is privately owned, whether it's the parking behind CJ's or the actual beach. And it's a very touchy kind of subject. You know, I think it was Roland who said we just kind of stay away from it and try to live with it, sort of thing.
Well, if you can imagine, I know what Roland and the amount of time Roland has spent getting the easements and all for the years that he's worked and tried to convince our community that this is a good idea to attempt to do this. It was extremely complicated. I don't know, Roland, of any other place that could have pulled something like this off, mixing all the private property that is mixed in here. This is a complete, I don't know whether you probably know whether there's any other place around that, and most people don't know that the county bought the right of way for where the berm is from the private landowners. Here they got their beach enhanced in the beautiful way that it's been enhanced, and yet the county paid them to enhance their beach. You want to chat about that for just a sec, Roland, and then we'll be done?
The city of Mukilteo spent years trying to get 400 feet done. of removing riprap and putting in a soft shore protection such as this, and it wasn't nearly as good as Wolf Bowers Beach. This project is 1.5 miles long, and you know, it started in 1975, and here we are in 2021, coming up on 2022, and we're still not complete with it. So I don't recall, I think there's 90 separate properties and 118 owners or something like that, that we had to negotiate with to get the berm put in and have pedestrians walk across you know, their property. And that is you know, someone asked, why did it take 2.5 years to get the permitting done and all the right of way? Well, that's why it took so long. We also had permitting issues that came out of left field. We had 4 different archaeologists working on this project, and the project has now reached over $15.2 million. So it's one of the most expensive projects Whatcom County Public Works has done, and there wasn't even any bridge work done on it. So yeah, it has been it's been one of those career projects. I'll never see another one, and I will never do another one. So it is something that the community of Birch Bay needs to be proud of. You really should. I mean, there are some things to get accomplished. Dealing with the bicyclist, I am having my shoulder repaired because of a bicyclist in Bellingham. Now, he ended up in the bushes because I'm kind of a stocky guy, and he thought he would just kind of sneak past me. And he was flying down the sidewalk, and we collided. He lost, and but my 60-year-old shoulder didn't do all that well either. So it's not unusual to have these conversations. There's a group of people that wanted to turn Lake Whatcom Boulevard into a 20-mile-an-hour road because of the bicyclists, and there's virtually no shoulder. The bicyclists travel in the travel lane, and that's the only place they have. So it's a difficult situation. We appreciate your patience greatly. We really appreciate the chamber taking the time to try to educate people. From my dear friends who are teachers, I understand that certain people are easier to educate than others. And we appreciate the chamber and the community doing their part in trying to let people know that just give the plants a little break and just let them be for a little bit, and understand that we're trying the best we can to meet all of your needs.
And since it took us 40+ years to accomplish this fabulous thing, it's going to take us a little longer to put together how we're going to use this in a safe manner, as safe as we can. So I hope the community gives the task force a little time to put something together. I heard a comment about getting signage up right now. We're not ready to do that, but hopefully by next summer we'll have something up, and we'll have maybe an ordinance in the fall to take to Whatcom County. And so it won't take us 40 years, but I hope that the community can be patient, because we want to do it right. The county does not want to be doing ordinances over and over and over again. So we'd like to try and make it as close to the right thing as we can by the time we bring it to the county. And I'd like to thank the task force members for taking in all this information. And we will set up a meeting together just with the members to sort of crunch all this information and try and begin to get ourselves a direction. Then we'll let the community know our next meeting. We were hoping we could have an open public meeting. I don't know whether it'll be after August 21st, because that's our Berm celebration with the county. And that's Saturday, August 21st. We'll be on the Berm doing some ribbon cutting and having a poker run. And so we look like for a fun day there. Any more, Danielle?
I don't have anything else. Jeff, did you have anything or were you just waving goodbye? You're still muted. You're on mute. There you go.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to say that the contractor did the work on the berm, did a fantastic job. They were absolutely amazing.
Thank you. I agree with you.
We agree. All right, well, if that's everything, we will adjourn for now and just follow along either on our Facebook page, our social, any of our other social medias, or on our website for when we'll have the next meeting after August 21st.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.